Chapter 286 Tier 8, Path of Trinity. In the secluded room, Maximus carefully felt the change within him, oblivious to all the commotion he caused outside. What a powerful domain. A domain can never become obsolete. It can be said that it is the main tool for a powerhouse to utilize their strength. However, due to the short range of most domains, it is seldom used in battle after reaching the apex. At Tier 7, Maximus's domain range is just a few thousand kilometers. If he fought at close range, Maximus could be considered invincible. However, those apex sovereigns, once they are serious, rarely get close to their opponents. Once you reach that realm, millions of kilometers are the bare minimum range of battle. After reaching Tier 10, the range of battle may even reach light-year distances. Of course, if you are like Malgren, who likes to fight using fists, then it's fine. However, without a domain, your opponent can easily escape. Just like when he fought with the shadow god Nyx. If Raksha didn't stop the fight, Maximus could only run for his life as Nyx whittled away his energy and life. Of course, there was no such problem because he had unlimited mana. However, it was as fatal as a chicken on a chopping board for others. Now, here is why Maximus marveled at his newly condensed domain. Unlike other domains that are in conjunction with the strength of the individual, his domain is ever expanding regardless of strength. Maximus can even reach millions of light-years of range, the same as Tier 10, without his strength advancing. With the dimensional source physique, Maximus didn't need to worry about the energy to expand and maintain his domain. Every part of his domain can pull energy from the void to maintain its form. If Maximus wanted, he could also use magic crystals, crystal merits, etc., to hasten the expansion of the domain. Of course, this would never happen unless he had too much money to spend. Besides the infinite expansion of the domain, various capabilities of his domain were also upgraded. Originally, it could only copy domains or physiques. Now, Maximus can create anything he wants. With the foundation he had, mastering and merging millions of physiques and domains. As long as he had an idea, he could immediately create anything he thought of. There is also the sensitivity of his domain. Originally, it could only detect and interfere with the power of law. Now, even the essence of law was within its coverage. Basically, an apex sovereign's attack would be nearly invalid in front of him. Of course, if they fought regardless of life and death, Maximus still needed to run for his life. After all, sometimes even water is afraid of fire. 800,000 kilometers. Just when Maximus was in thought, his domain unknowingly reached 100,000 kilometers. In this range, Maximus was like an omnipotent god. He could create something out of nothing. Judge everyone's life and death. Grant unlimited power and lifespan. Anything. This power. If Maximus's will had not been tempered enough, he would have already been sunk in this power. Looking at the creatures in his domain, so fragile and so oblivious. They didn't even know that their very life was in his hands. This is also one of the functions of his domain. His domain is invisible for those who didn't deliberately use the essence of law. This means without knowing the information about his domain, Maximus can be as unscrupulous as he wanted. After all, most of the apex sovereigns would rather sleep naked than waste their precious essence of law. Wanting to experiment, he began to find the strongest being in the Shadowhunter outpost. Where is Malgren? Maximus knew Malgren had stayed in his outpost, yet he didn't see any shadow of him. Let's see, the battle axe bar. As he converged his domain on the place, he suddenly felt his domain dissolved. As expected of the strongest being of the Ethereum realm, Maximus just praised after failing to detect Malgren. According to him, Malgren should have reached or touched the surface of the origin of law, the power only a Tier 10 being can possess. From Tier 8, one begins to master the manifestation of law or power of law. From Tier 9, one begins to master the essence of law. For Tier 10, one begins to master the origin of law. This is also the highest the law can be mastered. After one reaches Tier 11, one is already above the law. As for Tier 12, Maximus didn't know. Even under his scouring for various books in Myriad World Mall, the information he got for the Tier 12 realm was limited. After checking and experimenting with his domain, Maximus got ready to advance. It's time to upgrade the hardware. With software, knowledge, elemental affinity, and domain upgraded, he felt his body could barely keep up. Although his knowledge already reached the pinnacle of Tier 8, without corresponding power, it's useless. Furthermore, although his domain can infinitely expand, it's still up to him to control it. Gearing up to advance, Maximus took out all his crystal merits. Previously, he thought he only needed 100 quintillion crystal merits to advance. Unfortunately, he was gravely mistaken. Just to reach 99.999% of advancement, it already took him over 100 quintillion. Now, to fill that 0.000001, Maximus didn't know how many crystal merits he needed. Fortunately, there is Malgrin to give him money. Otherwise, it would take ages just to condense his domain completely. Let's start. Time passed as piles and piles of mountain-like crystal merits disappeared like crazy. Maximus's domain began to merge with every cell of his body. His cells filled with his body and soul began to agitate, wanting to banish the other foreign thing from its house. However, his domain, which is already fully condensed, was like a gangster with nukes. The domain easily entered every part of his cell, trying to merge the blood and spirit with it. Unfortunately, Maximus, the landlord, wouldn't let something like that happen. Although, for many, merging the blood and spirit with the domain is a good thing, it was a loss for him. There are 4 known ways to advance to Tier 8. 1 is merging the domain and spirit with blood. This is a way of knights, making their bodies stronger and invulnerable to all laws. 2 is merging the domain and blood with spirit. This is the way of magicians, making their spirit more affluent to the control of law. 3 is merging blood and spirit with the domain. This is the way of those who practice both the ways of knight and mage. Possessing a strong and useful domain, they want their blood and spirit to be branded with it, making it stronger. Usually, this is the strongest and the path most powerhouses take, but for him it's a loss. His domain was already so overpowered that merging his blood and spirit into it was useless. What he wanted was the 4th method, the Trinity of Power. This method is said to be the weakest yet the most versatile path of all. It's the weakest because you would not get much boost from your advancement. The most versatile because you can have all the enhancements and perks of the 3 paths. For Maximus, who had other ways to enhance his strength, such a method is perfect. Furthermore, it's the path he came into that points to the origin the most. Deciding his path, Maximus began to consciously help his blood and spirit fight back against his domain. With his control, even the domineering gangster with nukes began to look like a baby with a toy gun. As time passed, the tamed domain peacefully began to talk with his blood and spirit. 10 years later, Maximus slowly opened his eyes, peacefully breaking through. If it were not for the time spent, one would think that Maximus had just fallen asleep and then woken up. A Tier 8. After over 100 years, he finally reached Tier 8. Feeling his dormant power, he couldn't help but smile. After advancing, he felt invincible. All the problems that he thought of seemed to be insignificant. I wonder how powerful I am right now. Theory is, after all, theory. Without corresponding experience, it would always be on paper. But should I test my power in the abyss? Maximus thought excitedly. In his current state, Maximus was sure to escape even if the 4 abyss monarchs ambushed him. As for traps or whatsoever, they were useless. Under his domain, unless it reaches the origin of law, it's useless. Furthermore, after all these years, the range of his domain reached over 300 million kilometers. Although it was negligible compared to the perception range of those Tier 9 apex sovereign and abyss monarchs. It's all perception, what he had his domain. In his domain, he can converge his energy into nothing, rendering all detection useless. As long as he leaves the sight of his opponent for a while, he can run or hide as he wants. But first let me see what happened in the past decade. Chapter 287 Abyss Civilization. In his domain, he saw that his family was still in seclusion. Still breaking through. Over a decade ago, after he finished creating the 8th chapter of Origin, he quickly transferred it to his family, coupled with 50 quintillion crystal merits. This way, they wouldn't waste time waiting for him. After he advanced to Tier 8, he would return to the Ethereum realm to take care of his empire. Maximus didn't want to leave his family in such a dangerous world, so they needed to advance quickly. By now, it seemed that they were still in the process of fully condensing their domain. Although they just needed to merge their special physique with their domain. It would not be easy without knowing their special physique inside and out. Investigating further, he quietly read memories of his guild members and the gathered intelligence in the past year. It seems that nothing much happened. Maximus heaved a sigh of relief. Because he entered seclusion, the Shadow Hunter outpost stopped at the Purgatory layer. Although Eternal Voyager still continuously looked for resources and Abyss Source, there was not much danger. There is also his job as an intermediary for the said dimensional merchant. Before he entered seclusion, Maximus had already informed the top guilds and organizations that he would be gone for a while. Thus, before he entered seclusion, they had already bought what they could. Although he lost quintillions with his absence. Feeling his power, it was worth it. There is no problem here. Seeing that there was no problem, Maximus got ready to test his newfound power. In the fringe area of the source layer. After a few days of non-stop teleportation, Maximus reached his place. So this is the source layer. Besides the denser abyss aura, Maximus noticed a hint of architecture suggesting a civilization's presence. If the beings of the Ethereum realm saw this, they would undoubtedly be in shock. The thoughtless, bloodthirsty abyss monster they were fighting relentlessly still had the mind to create a civilization? It's like knowing that a group of animals in the forest build their own city. However, having already been informed about the abyss civilization, Maximus was not shocked. What's weird about a great dimension like an abyss having its civilization? Even an ant can have a colony, much less the almighty abyss. Inside these architectures, Maximus was looking for prey. A Tier 8 Lord Abyss monster containing a Tier 8 Abyss source. Since he was testing his power, why not earn resources simultaneously? Tier 8 Abyss monsters, even ordinary ones, are worth over 1 trillion when converted to system points. After reaching Tier 8, his mana generation multiplied by 10 times. The Monarch Abyss source fragment, which would usually take him over 4 months to fill, can now be filled in over 10 days. Plus, other Abyss sources could produce over 300 trillion daily system points. Maximus can now accumulate about 12 quadrillion system points monthly. Such an amount should be sufficient, especially considering he could only get a few trillion system points daily just a few years ago. However, after reaching Tier 8, his need for system points increased. Now, what he needs to study is Tier 9 knowledge. Such a monumental task, even a few hundred more quadrillions points daily are not enough. Thus, little by little, Maximus still hopes to collect Abyss source as much as possible. Finally, after roaming for a while, Maximus found an intact camp that seemed like an Abyss army camp. Inside was a group of elite Abyss monsters containing at least a fragment of Abyss source, giving them a hint of intelligence. This should be an army camp, Malgren told. Maximus muttered excitedly. According to his knowledge, an army camp like this should have a general who at least had an elite-level Abyss source. That was over 10 trillion worth of system points. Having found his target, Maximus carefully spread his domain in place, studying the location of their traps. Because Malgren frequently attacked these kinds of army camps. The Abyss monsters became smart and set many kinds of traps. Unfortunately, it was useless, only stopping Malgren for a few seconds. However, such a time was enough for them to convey the news to their monarch. If not, Malgren could continue to destroy an army camp near the place, causing further damage. What a tricky place, Maximus clicked his tongue in amazement. If other Apex sovereigns unknowingly landed on these traps, they would either be disabled or die there and then. Fortunately, Maximus had his almost omnipotent domain. With just a few manipulations, such traps became ineffective without triggering any alarms. And now it's time to fight. Stretching his arms, a palm-shaped energy was formed in his domain, slapping the Abyss army camp to pieces. Boom, tilde. Without the hidden defensive traps, the Abyss army camp was like a fragile piece of paper. Ew! Maximus muttered in surprise. He looked at the remaining Abyss monsters, neither attacking nor running but frantically manipulating the void. It seemed to want to send the news to the Abyss monarchs regardless of life and death. You Abyss creatures are really loyal. Maximus smiled, not in a hurry to attack. You are not the vermin. The Abyss monster muttered in shock. Without hesitation, it immediately conveyed another message to the Abyss monarchs. Are you done? Maximus smiled. Wanting to test his full strength, a Tier 8 Abyss monster is certainly not enough. Letting this guy deliver the message is just appropriate. How dare you dash? Since your usefulness is done, don't talk too much. Maximus condensed a ray of energy, shattering the Tier 8 Abyss monster into dust. Tisk, you're too tender, wanting to delay me. The Abyss monarch was coming, he didn't have time for these cannon fodders. Sucking all the Abyss source in place, he smiled at his harvest. Although he only got an ordinary Tier 8 Abyss source and a few Abyss source fragments, it's enough. But it seems I'm too strong. Thinking of wiping out a Tier 8 Abyss monster in one strike made him marvel at his current strength. Although such an attack consumed all the energy in his body, it was still too strong. An Apex Sovereign would probably have to pay a huge price to one-shot a Tier 8 Abyss monster like this. For him, it only took a fraction of a second to recover his energy. However, without the unlimited power of law, I can only use mana. Maximus sighed in helplessness. To have unlimited power of law, he would have to upgrade his physique to Tier 10. Looking at his panel, he still had a long way to go. Maximus Shadow Crest. Tier 8, 0%. Mana compatibility, rank 9-dimensional source, 0/1 sextillion. Soul amplitude, 1 trillion, 0.1%. Soul will, 1 trillion, 0.1%. Domain, origin domain. Power of law, 0%. A sextillion system points. To have the unlimited power of law, he would need to accumulate system points for epics. This may be a short time for those Apex Sovereigns who already lived for epics. But for him, who is less than 1,000 years old, such a long time was vague and looked like a dream. While he was in deep thought, he suddenly felt an intense energy coming toward him. It's here. Whoosh. So you are the other bearer of the ultimate physique, Drekther greeted with murderous intent.
Only Tier 8?
Drekther muttered in surprise. They thought that the bearer of the ultimate physique had broken through to Tier 9, so they sensed his physique. However, by the look of it, their guess was wrong. Could it be the special physique advanced to Tier 10? No, the intensity was too low. Could it be because of advancing to Tier 8? Drekther was shocked with his guess. If it was true, then this being was more frightening than he thought. However, you're only Tier 8 now, Drekther licked his lips in interest.
There is only one?
Maximus frowned, seeing only one of the Abyss Monarchs was in front of him. The other should be in ambush, which made him alert.
I alone am enough.
Drekther bluffed. In reality, the other three were hiding somewhere, watching the battle. It's just that Maximus's perception is so short that he didn't see them.
Are you sure?
Maximus muttered and quickly attacked. Repeating his old trick, he condensed his energy at one point and attacked the Abyss Monarch. Interesting. Looking at the ray of energy filled with all kinds of elements, he only stretched his hands.
Thump!
The dull sound made Maximus frown.
Oh, what a powerful Abyss Monarch!
Lightnovel, his attack didn't even cause a scratch to the Abyss Monarch, which amazed him.
Is this all you've got?
Did you get an auxiliary physique or something? Drekther muttered in puzzlement. Initially, he thought this bearer of the ultimate physique would be more powerful than Vermin because he caused a commotion just by advancing to Tier 8. However, looking at the attack that can only be used for massage, he frowned. Did I guess wrongly? Feeling underestimated, the look in his eyes became serious.
It seems that I need to get serious.
Chapter 288 Lack of Energy. Seeing that his attack didn't even cause a scratch, Maximus was not discouraged. His attack was only a test and didn't contain a hint of law, it was only pure mana.
Let's try this.
Maximus gathered 1% of his power of law and methodically mixed it with his domain. I explode. Suddenly, the atmosphere around Drekther compressed and exploded. Boom, tilde.
Thud.
Drekther fell down like a broken kite that had suddenly lost its string. Interesting. Drekther slowly got up and patted the dust on his body. Mere power of law could even affect the origin of law?
Oh, what a monster!
Facing the earlier attack, Drekther thought it would be only a bit stronger, but he was gravely mistaken. After a weird power of law latched onto him. All the energy around him and his body immediately converged and exploded. What's scarier is that even the origin of law hidden in his body almost exploded. If it were not for his alertness, immediately retracting the origin of law, he would have exploded there and then. A power of law capable of affecting the origin of law? What kind of insanity is this? Is this the power of an ultimate physique? Just a little trick, Maximus replied in pity. He thought he could at least heavily injure Drekther with the attack. Who knew it would only cause some scratches? As for his bit of power of law capable of affecting even the origin of law? It's a little trick he just learned from Malgren. When Malgren dissolved his domain, Maximus felt a little resistance. Although it's nothing compared to the absolute power of the origin of law, it's enough. Since the Abyss Monarch in front of him was only Tier 9. Even if he could use the origin of law, he couldn't fully control it. It's like knowing how to use a bomb but not knowing how to create it. with Maximus knowing that his power of law can interfere with the origin of law. He just needed to trigger the bomb, making the origin of law chaotic until it exploded. Unfortunately, his little experiment failed as Drekthar forcefully retracted his origin of law. However, as long as it works, it's good. Maximus repeated the trick and attacked Drekthar. Again, Drekthar smiled at Maximus's foolishness and retracted his energy. Boom, tilde. The same trick wouldn't work. Before Drekthar could finish speaking, Maximus silently teleported onto his back, clenching his fist. Bam! A fist filled with a tenth of his power of law squarely hit Drekthar's body, sending him flying.
Thud.
Cough. Cough.
Damn, my brothers must be laughing at me.
Drekthar muttered in shame, minding his embarrassment more than his injury. Standing his ground, Drekthar looked at Maximus with a thicker killing intent. A bearer of an ultimate physique is indeed not to be underestimated. Although he was mocking Maximus, Drekthar was not in the slightest bit careless. However, even after Maximus teleported onto his back, he couldn't sense a thing. If not for the attack, he wouldn't even know that teleported Maximus on his back. Thank you for your compliment, Maximus replied with a smile. However, in his heart was a sigh. Looking at the fully intact Drekthar, it seems that even 10% of his power of law can't do much damage. As for using all of his power of law, Maximus wouldn't dare. He was only here to test his strength, not to fight to the death. If his power of law was exhausted, he would be at the mercy of these abyss monarchs. A playtime is over. Suddenly, another voice sounded from the void. The seemingly simple sentence made Maximus chill to the core. Without thinking, he mobilized all his remaining power of law, all space barrier-breaking items, and teleported out in an instant. Boom! A moment after Maximus teleported, a few light years of barrier made of origin of law appeared. The thick barrier even made the abyss creak for a while, on the verge of breaking. Seeing the attack didn't work, Valdricht and Zalthar frowned.
Don't sweat it too much.
If a bearer of the ultimate physique is that easy to capture, then we would be helpless. Nixilos seemed to expect everything and calmed them down. However, thinking that they wasted a huge amount of origin of law, they still felt unhappy. This is all a necessary investment. Knowing what they were thinking, Nixilos comforted again. If the essence of law can be cultivated just by compressing the power of law, then cultivating the origin of law is like picking the best-looking seedling among the essence of law before condensing it. Of the essence of law, they can only have about 0.001 useful part that can be condensed to the origin of law. Such an inefficiency meant that the barrier they just propped up was equivalent to millions of epochs of time wasted. However, knowing that their life was on the line, they immediately calmed down. The fight between Drekthar and Maximus and the barrier they set up was just a probe. After knowing that there are at least 2 bearers of ultimate physique in their place, the main abyss dimension was ready to send reinforcements. However, before that, they needed to send evidence of their claim. After all, the main abyss dimension can't just rely on some words before investing a huge amount of resources and manpower. The fight and Maximus's escape just now were all recorded with a special device. After that, they just needed to send it, so the experts of the main abyss dimension could analyze the footage, proving their claim. I hope everything works. Nixilos thought hopefully. Main abyss dimension. In a laboratory, billions of gigantic eyes roamed around as they analyzed every particle and atom in the footage sent to them. Soon after months of investigation, various results came out. Send the information to the commander. The billions of gigantic eyes frantically compiled the information they got and sent it to their monarch. In a blood-red moon, resembling an eye, a seductive woman with beautiful scarlet-red eyes licked her lips in interest as she read the information sent by her subordinate. Interesting. The long-lost physique, dimensional source. Aha. After waiting for countless epochs, it's time for the abyss to rise again. The mere laugh caused vibrations throughout the abyss. The abyss creature near the scarlet moon trembled as they wondered what was up with their monarch, the Scarlet Eyes Witch. In the Shadowhunter outpost. In the manor, Maximus heaved a sigh of relief, finally recovering his spent power of law. So dangerous. Maximus muttered nervously. A few months ago, if not for his decisiveness, he would have probably disappeared by now. Although he can revive himself, it would probably take epochs before he could. By then, he didn't know what crazy things his family would have done or if they may still be alive. I shouldn't do such a dangerous thing again, Maximus warned himself. He was really arrogant, testing his power on the Abyss Monarch. He didn't even have the time to develop his power of law, it was still in its initial state. Maximus was mainly relying on his domain to output, limiting his attack. Yet he dared to test his power as if he were invincible.
Tisk, let this be a lesson.
Maximus warned himself again. However, the power of law is really troublesome. Maximus must admit that the power of law is strong. Even in its initial state, it could take him millions of light years away with a single teleportation. However, because it's limited, it made him a one-shot wonder. In these past few months, besides recovering his power of law, Maximus was thinking of a way to hasten his power of law recovery. Although with unlimited mana he can recover faster than others, it's not much use in battle. What he wanted was to fight freely without any energy restriction. Fortunately, it seems that his accumulation is massive enough that he thought of a solution. It's the amalgamation of will. All these years, after having Abyss Source as the source of his system points, the amalgamation of will didn't have much use. Besides providing a few trillion system points, it didn't help much. However, it was still one of the most omnipotent energy he had come across. But because of his lack of knowledge and control over it, it didn't exert its use. If he can master this energy thoroughly, maybe it can even replace his power of law as his main energy. Looking at the points he needed, a hint of determination crossed his eyes. Amalgamation of will, initial, 15 trillion/100 quadrillion. 3.1 quintillion. If the progression of system points needed to upgrade amalgamation of will to Transcendence Mastery is the same, then he only needed 3.1 quintillion points. With 12 quadrillion system points every month, he only needed over 21 years. Such a short time Maximus was willing to wait. At that time, he can finally see if the amalgamation of will is really as omnipotent as he thought. I hope it doesn't disappoint me. Chapter 289 Unrivaled Will. Thinking of the massive amount of system points he needed, he could only shake his head. Now, even his money is almost depleted. He had thought that he could achieve financial freedom after accumulating almost a sextillion crystal merits. Who knew that just condensing his domain would cost 700 quintillion crystal merits? Furthermore, there were also about 200 quintillions for his advancement and another 50 quintillions for his family. All in all, the 990 quintillion he had shrank to a mere 40 quintillion. Now that he reached Tier 8, a mere 40 quintillion was simply not enough. Like the ultimate treasure, Tier 9 books and knowledge, training resources, weapons, etc. 40 quintillion is simply a pocket change for the money he needed. Looks like it's time to sell those Tier 8 books. Although he hadn't sold those Tier 8 knowledge in recent years, he was not idle. He had already bought the Tier 8 printer to print various knowledge into books. Now, in his ever-expanding storage dimension, a galaxy with the printer as its sun began to rotate. His storage dimension was truly turning into the dimension of knowledge comparable to the river of knowledge that flows through all the dimensions. A system, list all the available books in the shop. It's time to earn the money, Maximus commanded. Although his system didn't have any spirit, it was still pretty intelligent. His shop, the storage dimension, and real-time monitoring of his body were all on its task. His system managing the dimensional library in the Myriad World Mall prevented others of weaker tiers from peeping. As a Tier 12 treasure remnant, anyone under it was not worthy of peeping on it. However, to be on the safe side, Maximus wanted to separate the dimensional library from him. Although he didn't know if those Tier 12 beings would be interested in him, it's better to be careful than regret later. As for the storage dimension, printing and sorting were under its management. After all, he can't let all those precious equipment and resources collide with each other. It needed to be categorized efficiently, which is just appropriate for the system to manage. Regarding his body's real-time monitoring, it's a preventive measure. Although he is confident in his own strength, who knows if there is someone who can curse him or something? It's better to be safe than sorry. Soon, his system listed all the available knowledge already printed in the dimensional library. I wonder how much money I can earn this time. In the immortal dimension. In the cultivation capital of the dimension, a young man was in a slump, thinking of his dark future. A sigh, when will this end? In the immortal dimension, one of the most powerful Tier 12 dimensions in the Omniverse, competition is never-ending. All those who fall would descend into mediocrity, losing the chance to live an immortal life. For Atlas, he didn't care if he lived long or not, but he loathed living a life of mediocrity. He would rather die than accept it. However, from the beginning of his birth until now, all kinds of results have shown that he is average. His physique, talent, comprehension, luck, and such are all average. Perhaps he can even be the median for others to compare in all of the immortal dimension. Fortunately, he was gifted with an incredible talent that the whole dimension, or perhaps even himself, was unaware of.
It's the will.
The will to never give up. The will to never stop. The will to never accept what he is not satisfied with. Atlas was prepared to do anything to achieve his goals.
Uh-huh.
The dimensional library updated? Atlas said in surprise. This dimensional shop can be said to be his go-to. Even with his mediocrity, he can still find something that can make him advance. Even so, average is still average. No matter what he did, it's average.
It seems that he was cursed by it.
Even the heaven-defying cultivation manual in the library was of no use to him.
Let's see if there is something new this time.
Browsing from top to bottom, he looked at those powerful manuals. Reading those incredible introductions, Atlas could only look in envy.
Oh, unfortunately, I'm barely trzeciego. Aha, what is this?
Unconsciously scrolling, he saw an unranked book. Like fate guiding him, he unconsciously tapped on the book. Unrivaled will, unranked. The most dominating condensation method, compressing every particle of your being to condense the most powerful body. Lightnovel caution, it hurts like hell, pain level 100 quintillion. Looking at the simple description, Atlas's eyes lit up. As for the caution that it's painful, who the hell cares? But in reality, a pain level of 10 can already kill a mortal. As for a 100 quintillion pain level, it could probably kill a tier 9 being. Even Maximus, who created this, just made it for fun. After chatting with Malgren bragged that nothing in this world could make him frown. Eager to make this arrogant person scream like a girl, Maximus accidentally created it. Initially, it was just a prank. However, when Malgren tried the manual, although he didn't scream like a girl as Maximus intended, they saw an amazing phenomenon. The more painful something is, the faster the training. It seems like the origin of the omnivorous wanted to pity these fearless individuals for their efforts. Furthermore, this kind of speed is regardless of all the obstacles. A mortal, a robot, a plant, water, and such can train with this manual. However, the pain inflicted is also regardless of all. Any treasure, medicine, special physique, etc., can't be used to ease the pain. Such an amazing manual. Maximus felt that it could even reach the ultimate dimensional level if it were not for its pain. Feeling pity for such an amazing manual to be buried with him, he sold it in the Myriad World Mall. To avoid being connected by Malgren in the future, he edited and upgraded the manual. First, the pain threshold was increased to 100 quintillion. If not for his limited ability, he would even increase the pain a notch. After all, although he didn't want the manual to be buried, he also didn't want others to find it easily. Second is the difficulty of the manual. It's more stupid proof than stupid proof. Even a rock with a brain can comprehend it in a few days. Anyway, as long as one had a spirit, one could comprehend the manual. After buying the manual, Atlas studied it for a few days.
This is quite easy.
Atlas felt enlightened, not believing that he could study a manual in just a few days. Even the foolproof manual he bought previously in the Dimensional Library took him a few decades to barely understand.
Let's see if I really mastered it.
Sitting cross-legged, he started to circulate the energy inside him as told in the manual. As soon as he started, he felt like he was being bitten by ants all over his body. The second passed, and he felt his body being hammered all around. Another second, and he felt he was being boiled in lava. As each second passed, the pain level skyrocketed multiple times. 100,000 pain level. 200,000 pain level. 400,000 pain level. 800,000 pain level. 1 million pain level. As soon as the million reached, even with his amazing will, Atlas felt his body was no longer his body. His thoughts also couldn't help but wonder. Should I give up? Anyway, it's not bad to live a life of mediocrity. With my amazing will, I can probably reach immortality. Why do I need to struggle so much? I should stop, otherwise I will really die. I should stop.
I have had enough of this pain.
I should stop.
IT hurts so much.
IT freaking hurts.
No.
No more. As Atlas's will started to collapse, the pain level also reached 1 billion. Even then, without reaching the 100 quintillion set in the manual, no energy or advancement happened. All of this made Atlas's will, which was already cracking, almost burst into pieces. As Atlas felt his life passed by, a thought couldn't help but pop up in his mind. I'm dying. This time he was going to die? Just because of his will, even with all the pain, his body is still functioning. Now that his will is collapsing, his body is also beginning to collapse.
Is this what I wanted?
Is all my effort worth it?
No.
Atlas roared unconsciously.
I don't want to die. I want to live. To hell with this pain. To hell with everything. There is nothing in this world that can stop me.
No matter who it is. No matter what it is.
It can't stop me. I come pain. It's not enough. I want more. I want more. I want more.
Atlas continues roar, kept his collapsing body alive. As the pain increased, instead of complaining about it, Atlas felt alive.
Uh-huh.
The pain is but a fleeting feeling. Atlas muttered as the pain reached its peak. Chapter 290 Transdimensional Organization Investigation. In the void, a dimension-sized fortress was quietly floating. It's one of the headquarters of the Transdimensional Organization, one of the most powerful forces in the Omniverse. Your Excellency, we still can't track the origin of the Dimensional Library, a subordinate reported.
This is expected.
Without the intervention of the Almighty, everything is for naught. Quasar, the leader of the headquarters, nodded nonchalantly. As the Dimensional Library sold a large amount of books that contained transcendence insights, the Transdimensional Organization placed it on its radar. However, even under relentless investigation from Tier 9, Tier 10, and now Tier 11 powerhouse, no results were found. However, they still managed to find a piece of important information. It was the Dimensional Library's method to create those transcendence knowledge insights. It should be a product created by the Space and Time Bureau, also one of the most powerful forces in the Omniverse. However, unlike them, this force operated in a low-key manner. If not for their leader, which matched the Almighty, no one would even know of their existence. Quasar had heard that this organization was the one keeping the Omniverse intact. Using an artificial Tier 12 treasure, they were able to do it quite easily. A Tier 12 treasure capable of creating transcendence insight was not surprising. This should be the unique treasure of the Dimensional Library used to generate transcendent insights. However, Quasar didn't understand why an individual from the Spacetime Bureau was blatantly selling those transcendent insights. Spacetime Bureau normally didn't interact with other dimensions. Moreover, if they did so, it would be to return a dimension to its balance, and you wouldn't even know it if not for various coincidences. Was there some conspiracy? Could something be eroding their omniverse, making it necessary to spread these transcendent insights? Various guesses popped up in his mind that he couldn't help but worry about. However, after sending the message to the Almighty, he didn't receive any reply. With the strength of the Almighty, this should be deemed as unimportant, so everything should be fine. I hope there is really nothing wrong. A few months later. In Shadowhunter Outpost. Maximus was looking at his income with excitement. After a few months, his balance went up to 100 quintillion again. This means that in these few months, he earned 60 quintillion. From 10 quadrillion every year to tens of quintillions every month. The leap at which he earned money was quite satisfying. However, Maximus knew this was only because many bought the follow-up chapter of their cultivation. After a few years, when almost all of them bought what they needed, and his income would return to slump again. At that time, Maximus would be satisfied if he could earn 10 quintillion yearly. However, this is enough? For the ultimate treasure, he still hadn't found anyone selling. At Tier 8, all ultimate treasures are no longer available. Maximus still needed to wait until the Myriad World Mall updated and had an auction function. He should be able to find what he needed by then. And now, I only need to wait for my family to advance to Tier 8 and master Amalgamation of Will. His harvest with the Abyss is enough. The Abyss source he needed can be slowly collected by his guild and Eternal Voyager. The crystal merits were also not needed. Earlier, he only needed it because he could use it to advance to Tier 8 quickly. Although he can still use it to advance to Tier 9. The amount needed is not something a Tier 9 Abyss dimension can produce in a short time. As for the income he could possibly earn as a middleman, there is no need to worry about that. His main customer is those top forces. Since their money is stored in the Ethereum realm, instead of earning less, he could earn more. More importantly, something was wrong with his empire. After his seclusion, he reviewed the news about the Ethereum realm. It seems that the all-out war was already beginning to boil. Maximus guessed that someone must have artificially interfered with the war. According to his estimate, there should still be a few decades before the start of an all-out war. Thus, hearing that the war was starting could only mean an outside intervention. A tisk, fortunately, my empire is still safe. Maximus heaved a sigh of relief. Reading the news, he was very nervous for a while. However, it seems that the backhand he laid in the empire is still of use. Just the millions of Tier 8 puppets have already made the empire's defense very solid. Even the instigator of the all-out war, the Wessel Empire, couldn't help but back out seeing this. After all, their emperor was the only one who could fight such an army. Instead of wasting their lives in that hellhole, it's better to conquer other empires. In this way, they could train and accumulate more resources. Once they had enough power, they could then attack the Moonlight Empire. Knowing his empire was safe, Maximus relaxed for a while. He wanted to fully master the amalgamation of will first before returning. During these months, as he allocated points to the amalgamation of will, he noticed that it was artificially created. This meant that there was a hidden force behind this seemingly omnipotent energy, secretly manipulating the cursed continent. Upon learning this, Maximus became disappointed for a while. The upper limit of the amalgamation of will isn't as high as he thought. After all, how can something created by an individual have a high upper limit? Unless the one who created it had some awesome ultimate physique or something similar. The upper limit of the amalgamation of will can, at most, reach Tier 10. Wanting to master the amalgamation of will before returning to the Ethereum realm was a preventive measure. Who knew what this black hand behind the scenes planned? Maybe it planned to exchange bodies with the winner of the era of imperial domination? Or maybe the winner would become the black hand's slave. Although he didn't consume any amalgamation of will to strengthen himself, he was still bound by it as an emperor. Studying the amalgamation of will to transcendent mastery can not only free him from the limitations of the power of law, it can also give him overall control of this seemingly omnipotent energy within him. It's only 21 years, maybe his family has not advanced by then. His empire also has various protections that he had set. It should be able to survive on its own for a few hundred years. Soon, 3 years had passed and the construction of various outposts was completed. Millions of additional outposts made the original desolate abyss lively as billions and trillions of Tier 6 powerhouses joined in. In one of the outposts, various Shadow Hunter Guild members began to appear.
So, this is the abyss?
TSK, I didn't expect we could come here at only Tier 6.
This is all thanks to the guild leader.
As the most talented individual in the Ethereum realm, this is easy. The guild leader is really awesome. I heard that he connected with a merchant from another dimension, making all this possible. As they bragged, the surrounding individuals couldn't help but be curious and ask,
Who's so awesome? Are you sure it's your guild leader? Of course, it's our guild leader. See this emblem?
One of them showed the Shadow Hunter Guild emblem.
A Shadow Hunter Guild?
That supernova guild that reached the top in less than 1,000 years? Damn, I didn't expect to meet people from that guild here. I heard that you can join the guild unconditionally.
Could we still join now?
Unfortunately, no. The Shadow Hunter Guild had long since put restrictions once it reached 10 billion members, one of them said helplessly, with a proud look. They were the first batch members of the guild, how couldn't they be proud? Unfortunately, the guild can't continue to support idlers forever, so it set a restriction. Even an elimination system made them promptly decide to go to the dangerous abyss. Here, opportunities are endless with the backing of the guild. As long as they are fearless, they should get good results. By the way, did you say your guild leader is the reason we could come here?
Is it true?
For them, coming to the abyss was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Compared to those long-lived Tier 7 individuals who had a lot of scruples. For Tier 6 individuals like them, who were all over the Ethereum realm, they didn't care about the danger of the abyss. They only cared about its endless benefits. They only had such a short life, why not gamble it and see if they could advance? Life is but a small price to pay for eternal life. They were ready to put everything on the line, much less their worthless little lives. Hearing that, they knew the reason they were able to come here. They couldn't help but be curious and ask,